All right, all right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you are new, I do want to let you know that we are live also on X and, of course, Rumble. And, of course, last but not least, YouTube. Welcome back, ladies and gents. Things really popped off over the weekend, and that's why tonight's theme is trapped. Trapped. The question is, can some of these issues actually make their way out of that trap? And that's what we're going to be discussing tonight, ladies and gents. Quick note, if you are on Rumble, please do not send Rumble rants. I do not have access to the screen that Eric uses for the Rumble rants today. So please do not send Rumble rants. I won't be able to show those on the show. So, ladies and gents, let's go ahead and start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat, and let's keep it moving and grooving. What is up, fam? Greetings, John says, no more criminal cultured presidents. I hear you, John. I'm right there with you. I hear you. What's up? I know myself. We are witnessing the reemergence of the Empire of Persia. The U.S. needs to get out of the region now. Even if you draft all men between the ages of 18 to 60, as in Ukraine, it's all lost. Yes, I'm glad you understand that. It is a lost cause for the United States. Greetings, Tyrone says, South Carolina on board B1 FBA. Shout out to Patricia. Trump needs to leave Iran alone. I agree. I hear you. Thank you, Mustang. U.S. troops killed in a war we had no business starting. 100%. See, you guys are so smart. You understand. Greetings, Cloudness says, happy Sunday fun day to Sabby Sabs and everyone in the building. Let's get it. And bing bong, Knicks in 5, B1 fam. I'm going to be hearing about the Knicks all year. Shout out to Hoodmare says, hope you're not one of those Knicks fans that wear Jordans and wore Bulls gear in the 90s. I think he's talking to Cloudness there. That's a funny one. Shout out to Bruce. Okay, Sabby, I subscribe to your Substack. What is the next step to attend your mutual aid seminar? Yeah, so Monday, the invite will be sent via my Substack. So it'll have the Zoom link for you and all that jazz. So I'll send that out on Monday, and then I'll send a reminder on Friday as well for people who come a little bit later. All right. Greetings, Matthew. 14 U.S. servicemen have been confirmed KIA in Jordan. Yes, we're going to get into all of that. They're trying to keep that number low. Shout out to Rich. Trump's Day, the most popular war movie was Gone with the Wind. Today's most popular Iranian Lego animation movie is Strait of Hormuz. Shout out to Lauren, says, doobie doobie doo. Hey. What is going on, Measured Man? Got that coming to you, Sabby? I need you to look through info. I'll send you and Eric in Utah this week. Okay, so you're traveling. Thank you. Good to know. Shout out to Randy. I'll be having my first mug of tea the day while waiting for the festivities to begin. My precious little Sabby and revolutionary comrades. Yeah, I got my tea too. Tea. Yeah, I'm a TB. Used to be a big coffee buff, but I had to stop drinking coffee. Coffee was causing some issues, like acidity issues. So I became a tea person. Greetings, Ronnie. Hello, Sabby and team. Please, when you can, have Brian Berlatek on again. He is such a good analyst. Thank you for all you do. Peace and free Palestine. Working on that, trying to work on that to see when Brian would be available. Thank you. Having coffee. I was speaking of coffee. Waking up to the Kazakhstan false Jews is hard to do for Americans. Greetings, Antonio. Everybody calm down. Have no fear. I'm sitting right here. That is good to know, Antonio. Shout out to Hannah, said got here early. And greetings, Jimmy says hi, y'all. All right, let's go ahead and give a shout out. We got some new members, ladies and gents. Shout out to Tyrone Rowe, Mark Mitchell, and Lisa Fagate. Thank you and welcome to all of them for just becoming Sabby members. Welcome. Thank you to you all. Okay, ladies and gents, let's go ahead and give a shout out to the Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for doing the damn thing and keeping the lights on around me here. Hey. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. We have the ultimate. We've got Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters. Everybody loves these Sabbies. It seems to be the most popular tier here. Thank you guys so much as well. And last but not least, coming in, rounding them out, we have the members. All of their names are listed here, ladies and gents, and you can also see their names scrolling across the screen throughout the ticker. We want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies because that's what they are. Let's give it up for Sylvia Ross, Yusef F, and Car MA54. Thank you. Wasn't there a show called Car 54 or something like that? I think my mom used to watch that show on TV Land. Have you guys ever seen Car 54? Where are you? Or something like that? I have to ask her about that. Anywho, thank you guys so much and welcome to you all. Yeah, Car 54, where are you? Car 54, where are you? I don't know, something like that. Somebody in the chat knows. Anyway, reminder, tonight's theme is Trapped. R. Kelly had a song back in the day called Trapped in the Closet. Now, I don't know if these people are trapped in a closet per se, but they're definitely trapped in situations. And we're going to try to see if there is a way out of it, So yeah, people are familiar. Yes, great show. Okay, you guys are familiar with Car 54. Okay, yeah, I thought so. All righty. Okay, ladies and gents, let's go ahead and show you that thumbnail so you can see what we are discussing tonight, fam. Things definitely popped off over the weekend. Oh, buddy. It is Sunday Fun Day, but we got some serious things to talk about this Sunday. Tonight, ladies and gents, we are discussing, yeah, it happened. U.S. troops killed in Iran war. You'll notice there's Donald Trump there next to IRGC spokesman. And what did we tell you, right? What did we tell you? Get the troops out. Didn't we tell you that this was going to be a risk? So we're going to talk about those troops that were just killed in Jordan after these attacks. And also what Donald Trump is trying to do now. Like this is just, it's wild. It's insane. I'm pretty sure people are going to be very upset when they see what Pete Hegseth had to say about those troops that have died. I don't know if you want to call it a twilight zone or what, but we've got some crazy things that are happening here and we're going to call it out. We're also going to discuss Vivek Ramaswamy has stepped in it again. Don't forget, he is running for governor in Ohio. So if you're in Ohio, you're definitely going to want to see this segment. Vivek Ramaswamy is obsessed. He's obsessed. And we're going to tell you who he is obsessed with and why I believe he's saying the things that he's saying. We're also going to discuss, this is not being talked about enough. Max Blumenthal is receiving threats. This comes, of course, after he has reported in Iran. He was there for Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral. And I take these things very seriously. So we are going to talk about that, what's happening to Max Blumenthal right now, and especially once he returned to the United States. We're also going to discuss, this is a big one. This Senate race in Michigan is causing a lot of controversy. And that there in the yellow square under Vivek, that is Abdul El Sayed. A lot of people are, I guess, frustrated with him. By people, I mean the establishment. They really want him out of there. He is running, of course, a populist platform, and he's running against Haley Stevens. And that's also tied to Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn just did something recently that shows you exactly not just who he is, but who the Congressional Black Caucus is and where they're standing in this race. I'm going to show you the side that they're actually on. And this is what I've been warning people about. A lot of these people in Congress need to go. And last but not least, we are discussing the recent sinkholes that just happened in Los Angeles and Baltimore. My birthplace right there, Baltimore, Maryland. Huge, massive sinkholes in both of those cities have happened over this weekend. And we're going to get into all of that, ladies and gents. Yeah, we got to get rocking and grooving. Again, just want to remind you, the theme tonight is Trapped. And if you have not done so, before we get into the first story, do me a solid and smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Let's get it popping, ladies and gents. Let's start with the first story here. Yes, I am from Baltimore. Yes, be more. Be more. All right. Let's get started with this first story here, ladies and gents. There is a huge Senate race that is happening right now in Michigan in the Democratic primary. It is Haley Stevens versus Abdul El Sayed. Haley Stevens, as you guys, if you're not familiar with her, she's very much corporate. She is aligned with AIPAC. They are donating a lot of money into this race to stop Abdul El Sayed. Haley Stevens is a current congressional member in the House, and she's running for the Senate seat. She has a lot of money behind her. And now she has this. Representative Jim Clyburn has decided to endorse Haley Stevens for U.S. Senate in Michigan. Let me explain to you why this carries a lot of weight. In 2020, Jim Clyburn decided to endorse Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders. That was during that South Carolina primary. That's when the race changed because Bernie was winning those states. And then this endorsement from Jim Clyburn changed everything for Joe Biden. Joe Biden wasn't even in the top 3 before South Carolina. Getting an endorsement from Jim Clyburn means that you are also getting an endorsement from the Congressional Black Caucus, which she has gotten this as well. The CBC PAC is endorsing Haley Stevens for U.S. Senate in Michigan. CBC spokesperson says that Haley has spent her career fighting for Black Michiganders. So let me explain something, folks, and we'll get into where Jim Clyburn stood on a couple of things in just a second. I cannot stand the way that Jim Clyburn is establishment, but I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like this isn't a big deal. That endorsement from Jim Clyburn is going to help Haley Stevens with Black voters in Michigan, and in particular, older Black voters in Michigan. I don't like it. It's disgusting to me when I get to who Jim Clyburn really is, but that's the reality. Haley Stevens knows that. Those of us who are involved during Bernie 2020 and 2016, we also know this. That endorsement carries weight. In Michigan, you have a city called Detroit. Detroit has a large Black population. If Haley Stevens gets the Black vote, she is going to go on and win in the general election. This is really important for people to understand. So I'm almost kind of getting some flashbacks as to what happened in 2020 after Biden got that Clyburn endorsement and everything turned around in his favor. Now, many may be wondering why the CBC is endorsing this candidate that is pro-AIPAC and, of course, seems to be totally fine with the genocide that's happening, very much pro-Israel, and that is because the Congressional Black Caucus is also bought off by AIPAC. AIPAC is their largest donor. The Congressional Black Caucus is not in Congress to serve Black voters. It's not in Congress to serve populist ideas. Their number one priority is Israel. And I want to show you an example of that, okay? Because Jim Clyburn likes to tout a lot that he is this progressive and that he protested before in the days and all that jazz. I just want to remind you what Jim Clyburn said when he was on Meet the Press about the pushback that Biden was receiving at that point in time surrounding Gaza.
Gallup poll finds that a majority of all Americans now oppose Israel's war in Gaza, and approval of Israel's actions have dropped from 50 to 36% since November. There were a number of interruptions at that fundraiser, and a growing number of Democrats are now calling this a genocide, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, Congressman, my question for you, do you agree with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez that what is happening is in fact a genocide?
Well, I have not analyzed it to that extent, but I'll tell you this. What is happening is wrong, and we need to make it right. And that's what President Biden is trying to do.
So pay attention. Notice he won't say it's a genocide. And that was not what Biden was trying to do. As we revealed after the fact, we tried to tell you guys then, but also after the fact, we had evidence to show you that Joe Biden never asked for a ceasefire. He continued to give Netanyahu weapons. Let's go on.
trying to make it right. And I would say that poll showed much more of a dissatisfaction with Netanyahu than with the people of Israel. We stand with the people of Israel. We do not like the fact that this country's policy is a two-state solution. And Netanyahu has undermined that two-state solution for as long as he's been in office. He sold his soul to the right-wingers in Israel in order to maintain power for himself. And those people are opposed to his two-state solution. Biden is for a two-state solution. Democrats are for a two-state solution. That is the only way for us to move forward. And so this drop in support has nothing to do with the people of Israel and everything to do with Netanyahu.
Yeah.
So the polls actually show that the people of Israel, the majority of them, feel that Benjamin Netanyahu didn't go far enough. The polls actually show the majority of Israelis in Israel support the Greater Israel Project and want the Palestinians completely gone. So do you see, he was doing it even back then. They were trying to get you to believe this was just a Netanyahu issue. It's not. The problem is Zionism. So you have a congressional Black caucus that is deeply entrenched and supportive of supremacy. Doesn't make any sense, does it? That's why they keep it on just Netanyahu. They don't want to get into what Israel really is. So she did push back here.
Congressman, do you think the U.S. is doing enough, though? It's just approved another order of shipments of munitions and weapons to Israel. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen saying the Biden administration, quote, needs to use their leverage effectively and should receive these basic commitments before greenlighting more bombs for Gaza. Commitments to preserve civilian lives is what he's referencing. Should the U.S. be using its leverage and withholding those munition shipments?
Well, the leverage has to be used, and I think the president is using his leverage.
But is he using enough of it, Congressman? They just accused that, they just approved that new shipment of weapons.
Well, the question is, what were the agreements made last year and the year before, and whether or not we are going to keep our word? We cannot go back on our word and expect for other people to keep theirs. So we have to keep our word. And so I have no idea what may be in these deals, what the president may be living up to. But the fact of the matter is, we must not lose our integrity as a nation, and we've got to stand in support of Israel.
So Jim Clyburn's statement was, we can't lose our integrity, but we got to stand with Israel. Standing with Israel is losing your integrity because it's a genocidal state. So that didn't make any sense. Two, Joe Biden did not withhold those weapons. He was still giving more weapons. So I'm glad she did push back on him with that. And I think like these are just things that people really need to see and understand, right? Like that's who Jim Clyburn is. Now, why is that important? A lot of people don't want to get into all of that. And unfortunately, a lot of voters, even till this day, are just now hearing about what AIPAC is. Because a lot of people are not as politically astute as like the rest of us that are paying attention all the time, right? And so a lot of times people just see, well, this person was endorsed by the Congressional Black Caucus, so that's who I'm going to support because they supported Barack Obama. It sounds silly, but it works on a lot of people. What people have to know is that Haley Stevens is actively paying influencers to make it seem like she has more support than she actually does. This was done before. I remember this was during Hillary's campaign. This was also done during the Democrat primary between her and Bernie. Bry says, what a coincidence that they all happen to have the same exact message at roughly the same time. Haley's campaign is paying these people $1,500 for each positive post they make about her. Her campaign is nothing but an attempt to subvert American democracy by purchasing the Senate seat. So this is the example I was talking about. All these people on Twitter got the same talking point, and they do it, typically back to back. I have to admit, Haley Stevens is growing on me. Here's another one. She's growing on me. Here's Maya. She's growing on me. You see how this works, guys? And they put these tweets out in unison and to make you believe she has more support than she actually does. But what you need to know is that those people are paid. Rashida Tlaib goes on to say now influencers are being paid to say she is growing on them. That will never erase the fact that Haley Stevens took corporate PAC money from the companies hurting Michiganders. This is the stuff that people, a lot of times voters just don't know this. AT&T, BlackRock, Blue Origin, that's owned by Jeff Bezos. Boeing, Charter Communications, Cigna, Comcast, Deloitte, DoorDash, DTE Energy, Ernst & Young, General Mills, General Motors, Goldman Sachs, Guardian Life Insurance, Home Depot, Honeywell, Humana, McDonald's, Price Waterhouse Coopers, PwC, Principal Life Insurance, Qualcomm, Stanley Black & Decker, T-Mobile, UBS, and Verizon. Those are just a couple. You see how the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So Haley Stevens is very much corporate. And according to Rashida Tlaib, she took money from companies that are actively hurting people in Michigan. Problem is, a lot of voters, especially a lot of the older voters, they're not going to look into all of this. They're not going to look to see where her money's coming from. And let's say you do go to them and you say she took money from these people. How do you feel about that? You would be surprised how many people will sit up there and tell you, well, I don't care. Congressional Black Caucus endorsed her, so I'm going to support her. I remember having people tell me this to my face in 2020. People told me these things in 2024. Like when you actually go, when you get offline and you talk to people on the ground, you might be surprised how many people actually fall for this. Well, the CBC endorsed them, so that's who I'm going to support. The sad thing is it actually works. And so if Abdul cannot increase support with Black voters, he's going to lose. This is the part some people don't want to hear. To show you my point, when she was questioned here, notice how she's smart with this. Notice how she makes sure to bring up Obama.
Of course, we do have this rally tomorrow with Sanders and AOC for your opponent. There are a lot of people in the Democratic Party that are looking for that progressive kind of movement.
Yeah.
How would you try to bring those people in?
I'm just curious if, Mr. Sanders is willing to acknowledge the great work that I did alongside President Obama on the auto rescue. He had just himself gotten into the United States Senate, and I don't remember him being around for the auto rescue, but I certainly remember our sleeves being rolled up to save the 200,000 Michigan jobs, to stand up for working people and to do the right thing. And I'm also really proud of the record that I have. I have been recognized as the most effective lawmaker for Michigan because I write laws and I pass laws and I make a difference. I'm not in the complaining class of pointing fingers.
So I want to point something out. Notice how she's digging deeper into her accent now. Like she's really playing into that Midwestern accent. So let's get to something here. She was questioned about Bernie and AOC. And even though I have my criticisms of Bernie and AOC as well, the point is what she did there is she made sure to snap back with Barack Obama's name because she knows that in Michigan, Barack Obama's name still holds a lot of weight in the Black community. This is a strategy that has been proven to work. It's unfortunate. I hate that people still fall for it, but it does work. She has to use his name in order to be relevant. And this is something everybody got to pay attention to. That's why I'm warning you now. Okay? If she wins the Black vote, she's going to win. If the majority of Black voters support her in Michigan, she is going to win. I can only listen to so much of her, so I got to put her back in the background. I'm sorry, guys. She bothers me, right? Now, El Sayed was just recently interviewed by Alex Wagner. And I want you to pay attention to how Alex Wagner is going to push the need to simp for a supremacist genocidal state instead of having this type of empathy for the Palestinian people. Listen to this.
So the idea that Michigan tax dollars should be sent to a foreign government that wants to foreclose on Palestinian rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination, which I hold equal to Jewish rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination. But the idea that our money is being sent to a government that wants to foreclose on one community's right to self-determination and being misused away from solving the needs of the people I'm actually serving is a pretty crazy thing. And in setting up this question about Israel's right to exist, you rightly point to the idea of whether or not there is American intervention that ought to be spent to enforce that. And I think the vast majority of Americans would say, whatever you think about Israel's right to exist, our tax dollars should not be used for the interests of a foreign government when they need to be used for the interests of the people living in our community on its own. So I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. But I also understand that in an era where people ask you, how are you going to pay for that when you want to give people healthcare, or how are you going to pay for that when you want to give people good schools, it's pretty crazy to be sending our money over there when it could be used over here.
So no funding to ensure the survival or future of the Jewish state.
Well,
do you see this? So you see what Alex Wagner just did? She said, so no money to be sure that there's a survival of the Jewish state. This is what I'm talking about. No focus on us right here at home. The focus on Israel. This is where we're at, ladies and gents. This is where we're at. So you see, that's why I said they all support supremacy. And Alex Wagner be one of the first ones to push back against, I'm going to push back against white supremacy right here in the United States. But she's totally fine with Jewish supremacy. They all support it, guys. Let me let him finish here. This is crazy.
I'm back around on you, Alex, and say, why is it our responsibility to ensure that?
I'm just asking because I think
why is it
understanding. I think that,
but hear me out. Why is that the essential frame from which we work? Like, why is it assumed that the United States ought to be in the business of backstopping a foreign government? Like, I'm just saying, like, I don't want ill will for Jewish Israeli people at all. I really don't. I just want equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for all people. But the notion that somehow our tax dollars ought to secure the interests of a foreign government, like, this is the United States and our own kids don't have good schools, and you're telling me that should be a primary concern over there? Like, imagine we said the same thing about any other country, any other one. Like, my family's from Egypt, okay? Like, would it be crazy if somebody was asking me, like, hey, do you think Egypt has the right to exist? People would be like, Egypt exists. I'm like, well, if somebody wanted to change the nature of Egypt, do you think the United States should be spending all of its money to make sure, or any of its money to make sure that happens? And people are like, I don't know, what that seems like a different country's issue. But like, I'm just saying that, like, you can both say that Israel exists, but it doesn't have a right to my tax dollars. And it is not our responsibility as American taxpayers to take money away from kids who don't have good schools and give it to a country to buy bombs and tanks. Like, the idea that our conversation even questions that is itself a big question we should be asking. Like, why is this the frame of the debate?
Because here's the thing, and this is what I pointed back on. Now, that's common sense. Why would you be focused on sending money elsewhere when you have to take care of people right here, right? But the problem that you then run into is this, and this is the part they'll never admit it, but I'm just going to tell it to you. The U.S. government decided long ago that they were going to build up Israel, because Israel is basically a military base, a U.S. military base. They're going to build up Israel with technology, with weapons, of course, defense, even if that means that we lose economic freedoms and we lose some of the things that we have here in the U.S. Even if that means the U.S. is going to decline economically, they don't care. There's no way in hell that Alex Wagner can actually sit there and think that actually makes sense. Let's not focus on kids right here. Let's focus on Israelis instead. But they all have a script. That's the script that they have been given. So when I talk about Jim Clyburn and this endorsement, and by the way, listen, El Sayed, he doesn't go as far as I want him to go. And so people say, well, what was Jim Clyburn supposed to do? Should they endorse him or da, da? He didn't have to endorse anybody. That is always an option. Jim Clyburn and the Congressional Black Caucus didn't have to endorse anyone, but they did it to prove a point. The Congressional Black Caucus is establishment. You have to understand that, right? So peep this. At this event that Abdul had when he was canvassing, Jake Lane, you guys know Jake Lane, the racist that goes around and harass and taunts people. He showed up there to his event. Watch this.
Small little slap on the wrist. Hey, crime charges. I have hate crime charges from your team. You guys are USA, 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 USA.
So they tried to drown out Jake Lane by chanting USA, and you'll see another angle here. Again, Jake Lane, this guy was one of the J6ers, and he always he'll show up at like Muslim events, he'll show up at Black events, and like just tries to like cause trouble.
Why are you persecuting me?
We're gonna clap him out. The reason I wanted to clap him out to USA is because he doesn't hate me. He doesn't hate AG. He don't even hate you. You know what he hates? He hates America. He hates the idea of what America was always supposed to be. Of the people, by the people, and for the people. Where it should not matter the color of your skin, should not matter how you pray, should not matter who you love, that you can be fully and 100% America. He hates that America. He wants America to be small. He wants America to be like him. He wants America to be hateful. He wants America to be a place that does not include. And every day that we go out there and we knock on those doors, we make an argument about what America actually is. An America that is bigger than his hate. An America that is bigger than the small-mindedness that he brings to this. An America that has a bigger heart than the one that he has. An America that is bigger than a Donald Trump who thinks that some people don't get to belong here because of their color of their skin. An America that is bigger than the idea that we all can come together and pray how we choose or not pray at all. An America that is bigger than Mike Rogers and the corporate corruption that they all take to run these campaigns to pick our pocket. The America they believe in is one where a few people who look a particular way get to siphon off your money to make billions. That's the America they want. That's the America he represents. That's the America he's so mad he didn't get. And as much as that's an ugly display of the America they want for us, this here is a beautiful display of the America we can yet build.
So the reason why I wanted you to see that is because of this. Jim Clyburn is against the same candidate that Jake Lane is against. You don't see Jake Lane at Haley Stevens' event. You saw him at El Sayed's event. You see what I'm saying? So the Congressional Black Caucus are siding along with supremacists. This is the crazy part. This is the crazy part. They're all bought. Jim Clyburn, Hakeem, Cory Booker, Maxine Waters, get out of here. These people are all bought off. And we talk about like what it means to be trapped, right? This is something I want to explain to people. This is the reality, how many voters feel. Ken shared this earlier. He said, when questioned about the perception that he's an establishment candidate for governor of Wisconsin, this is what David Crowley said. Now, this guy, he's running in Wisconsin, but listen to what he says, because this actually resonates with a lot of people.
A lot of people are wondering why, how, they're feeling a little uncertain. It's chaotic.
Yeah.
And the comments that I've been hearing are, he's the establishment candidate. That's why he came back. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that whether you live in the state of Wisconsin or don't, you know, when you think about the establishment candidate, I don't think you see a black kid from the city of Milwaukee.
Did everybody hear that part that he said? If you're talking about the establishment, You're not thinking about a black kid from the city of Milwaukee. Now I'd actually push back on that and say, actually, that's what Zionists and, of course, corporations look for. They look for someone like that, someone who came from the city, but did well, and moved up in life. Like, you're a dream candidate for the establishment because you're the look, he did it candidate. What's sad about what he said is that is actually true. There are many voters who think that. They think that if someone is a black candidate or if they're endorsed by Jim Clyburn or the Congressional Black Caucus, that they are not establishment. They just can't be. A lot of people don't realize that the Congressional Black Caucus is establishment. This is why I say we have to do a lot of political education in this country. Like, people don't get it until you actually talk to people on the ground and you realize we have a long way to go. 2020, one of the things that really stood out to me when I spoke to older voters, a lot of older voters told me that it wasn't that they didn't support these populist policies, like universal health care, that type of stuff, but it was more so that they didn't believe that it was actually going to happen. And they kind of like, you're reaching for the sky there. And I just don't believe that those things are actually going to happen. What I noticed from a lot of older voters is that if they don't believe that something is doable, they are less likely to vote for it. That was what I noticed. Another thing that I noticed, and by the way, it is doable, but another thing that I noticed is that some of the policies that we support, like universal health care, et cetera, didn't really appeal to them as much because they already had Medicare. I can't tell you how many times this was said to me. Well, what about universal health care? I already got Medicare. Now, when I spoke to younger voters, different answers. A lot of the younger voters supported those things because they don't have it. This is the big difference. So I am here to warn everybody now that Haley Stevens, as it stands right now, if she gets, especially from the older black voters, if she gets their votes, their support, she is going to win. What we see happening time and time again, like I said, it's not that they don't necessarily support the policies. If it sounds too good to be true, a lot of the older voters, especially older black voters, they just don't buy into it because they're like, this sounds too good to be true. I just don't believe this is going to happen. They're just blowing smoke up my ass, basically. If it's a name that they don't recognize, they're less likely to support the person. That's another thing that we have to deal with and understand. And for the DSA candidates, and I've said this time and time again, there should have been some, like, when it comes to the black community, there is a struggle there with that type of candidate. This is not something that can be thrown under the rug. It's very real. There is a struggle with that type of candidate with older black voters. Younger black voters tend to heavily show out for those types of policies. Like we saw this with Bernie Sanders. The younger black voters come out and support like those universal policies. Older black voters, not so much. But when I'm looking at the numbers and I'm seeing that Haley Stevens has a significant support from the black voters in Michigan, that is not a good sign for El Sayed. And this is something that people really need to pay attention to. And I said this back then in 2020, and I'm saying it again now. And Leroy says right here, El Sayed is having the same problem Bernie had with black vote. And Sayed was a part of his campaign. It goes to show that they have no interest in learning from their past mistakes. Yes, the outreach to the black community is not the way it should be. That's a big problem. I don't know if DSA ever wants to deal with that, but that's a reality. So now we're going into different places. You see, this is not New York. This is not Colorado. You're in Michigan, and Michigan is a swing state. And getting that endorsement from Jim Clyburn actually is a big deal. So when we talk about like being trapped, right? Like the Congressional Black Caucus is basically trapped in this AIPAC bubble. They can make a decision tomorrow and they could say, you know what? All of us going to band together and none of us are going to take any money from pro-Israel lobbies. They could do that tomorrow, but they're not going to. A lot of them been there for a long time. You know, they're comfortable in their positions. They like the perks and they don't want to lose their seat. So they're not going to do that. They're trapped in that sense. The DSA has to make a decision whether or not they actually actively want to engage Black voters, especially in these swing states. Otherwise, this is going to continue to happen. I saw it all over social media. People are saying it right now. See, look, where are the Black people? Where are the Black voters? They're not in support of this. And so there's work there that definitely should have been done a long time ago. But ultimately, what both are going to realize, and I think Haley Stevens is very well aware of this, is that you can't win without the Black vote. And there needs to be strong political education in this country to wake people up to who these candidates are, where the money is coming from, and who they're actually fighting for. Because the establishment candidate is not in the interest of the people. It's in the interest of the corporations. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Shout out to Measure Man who gifted 10 Sabby memberships. Congrats to everyone who received those. Thank you, Measured Man. Thank you, Reem McCarthy. Vote for people, not party. Love your passion, Sabby. Thank you, Kenman. People love Clyburn's fish fry. The fish fry isn't even great, guys. It's fish. I mean, you can fry fish at home. Thank you, Adele, for the super sticker. All right. Donaku said Hillary Clinton won the Black vote in Michigan against Bernie and lost. Correction. Bernie won Michigan. The DNC took Michigan from Bernie and gave it to Hillary Clinton. And that's why she lost Michigan in the general election. That's important to add. Thank you, Measured Man. Is this the 304 that said Israel came to her in her dreams? Get the fuck out of here to include Jim. Yes, that's her. Thank you, Kenman. Uncle Clyburn. Thanks, Cool Blue. In 2016, the Democrat presidential primary, Blacks in South Carolina were 61% size of the vote. They voted for Hillary with 85% of their vote. In Michigan, won by Bernie, Blacks were 21% size of the vote. They voted for Hillary with 68%. There you go. Thank you, Kenman. Alex Wagner thinks Clooney is amazing humanitarian. Thank you for this one. Americans are so dumb, they will vote for Stevens. Thank you, Roger. Individuals have rights, not corporations and countries. Thank you, Cool Blue. The youngest voting age group, 18 to 29, need is to turn out a higher size of their vote to counter the oldest voting age group, 65 plus. Yep. Thank you, Roger. When SR said they already have Medicare, what was their response when you said Medicare covers mental, dental, vision, hearing, meds that Medicare doesn't? Medicare for All covers that. They didn't, again, they said it was too good to be true. See what I mean? Thank you, Skip. Old voters still watch TV. They live in a false world. Thank you for the super sticker, Gooby. Thank you, Roger. DSA doesn't want to deal with reparations. We are on the opposite side of immigration that they are. So again, just not being engaged with the Black community. This is what I was talking about. And when you get into some of these more competitive states like Michigan, that is a swing state, these things actually do matter. Let's go to the next story here, ladies and gents. If you haven't done so, do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you. We're continuing on the theme with trapped. Hey. Okay. Speaking of trapped, Max Blumenthal recently returned from Iran. He was there reporting on Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral. And there were multiple videos that he posted about that, and we've discussed it before on the show. However, when he returned home to the United States, he got a rude awakening. Let's go ahead and bring in this image here. Max Blumenthal was visiting a rally here where masses of citizens chanted against Iran's assailants to the rhythm of Dammam music. Rallies like these have been held in squares across Iran over 120 days. This is just one of the videos to show you here. some of the work that Max did when he was in Iran.
It's Max Blumenthal, and I got you backstage access at Engelab Square in Tehran for one of these popular mobilization rallies that have been carried out for over 120 nights in a row since the U.S. and Israel imposed war on Iran. Average people from across Tehran come out to these rallies to show their support for their government and their militaries that fended off U.S. and Israeli attacks. And they consider these mobilizations to be a central component of their country's survival. And they're continuing on after the war, after the signing of the MOU, as their late leader Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral takes place nearby. And the music that you hear behind me is called damam. It is a style of music from southern Iran that aims to recreate the sounds of the Battle of Karbala. The drums you hear are the beating of horses' hooves. The cymbals are the sounds of swords clashing. And this is the sound of resistance in Iran.
Yeah, one of the things that Max Blumenthal, and there are other journalists that were there as well. He's not the only American journalist that was there, but he's the only one I've heard of so far that has had to deal with this unfortunateness since he's returned to the U.S. I'm not sure if the others have returned just yet. But one of the things that he showed was the number of people that were in support of, the resistance and the number of people that were there to mourn Ayatollah Khamenei. And of course, Western corporate media does not like that at all. So I think that's obviously one of the reasons why they're coming after him. So you guys get the point there. Again, some of the reporting that was done by Max Blumenthal, but when he returned home, unfortunately, he had to deal with this. Under Israeli pressure, the U.S. seizes Max Blumenthal's devices on return to Tehran reporting trip. Of course, the Gray Zone put this out as well. We're going to tell you what else is happening to Max Blumenthal. It goes on to say Max Blumenthal was targeted by an Israeli doxing outfit and Laura Loomer when he arrived in Iran to report on Khamenei's funeral and the war. Upon his return, U.S. agents seized his electronic devices and subjected him to interrogation. Our reporting at the Gray Zone has clearly become a problem for this criminal cartel, he commented. Let me go ahead down here. Max Blumenthal was traveling back to the U.S. from Iran, which he had visited to report on the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei. While in Iran, Max Blumenthal interviewed members of Iran's negotiation team, top political officials, academics, and average citizens for a series of video and print reports for this news outlet, which he founded the Gray Zone. He also documented several U.S. and Israeli war crimes from the ground. See, this part here is really important. Again, a lot of the things that corporate media wasn't showing you. This included the destruction of an entire neighborhood in eastern Tehran, which left at least 40 civilians dead. When he re-entered the U.S. at Dulles International Airport, Customs and Border Patrol interrogated Blumenthal about his trip. They searched his belongings and demanded that he provide access to his smartphones. When he refused to open his phones, CBP officers forced him to turn them over for detention. Other journalists and travelers have been threatened with the loss of their passports for a month for failing to hand over their devices. Blumenthal entered Iran exactly as reporters working for the established media outlets like CNN and NBC did, on a press visa granted by the Iranian Foreign Ministry. So let me just pause here for a second. This was true. This is something that was allowed as of this year, that Iran was giving these press visas. I remember I saw the emails go around for American journalists to come there and report. So he did things the proper way. He got a press visa to go to Iran and report. So why is he being interrogated when he returned home? Goes on to say here, when journalists from CNN and NBC and other American outlets returned to the U.S., they were not subjected to the same harassment Blumenthal experienced, nor were they required to give the U.S. government their electronic devices. Max is widely recognized journalist in the American independent media. He's been reporting for 25 years. He's the author of 4 books, including a New York Times best-selling volume and numerous widely viewed documentary films. Having reported from numerous countries and conflict zones around the world, he is the winner of several awards, including Online Journalism Award and more recently the Pierre Spry Award for Defense Reporting and Analysis. By the way, that award right there is a big deal. It was precisely because of my journalism that I was targeted by the Trump administration. The U.S. government is clearly threatened by my reporting from Tehran, where I showed the massive crowds of mourners and ferocious public backlash to the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, exposed U.S. and Israeli war crimes against civilians from the ground, and conducted candid interviews with officials and negotiators. The seizure of my devices was a clear act of intimidation aimed at deterring me and others from doing further critical reporting from Iran about the illegal war ravaging the country, which is likely why my interrogators from CPB demanded to know if I would be returning to Iran anytime soon. So this is important. One of the things that stood out to me with Max's case is that they wanted to know if he was going to be returning to Iran. Now, if you guys remember, one of the things that happened during Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral, Donald Trump released this statement that he said he was shocked at the number of people who were present because he was told everybody in Iran hated Ayatollah Khamenei. That reporting, a lot of it, which showed the people who were there, was done by people like Max Blumenthal. The Trump administration is very much aware of who Max Blumenthal is. This is not someone who just became a, journalist yesterday. He has been around for a long time. So this is important for people to understand. They know exactly who Max Blumenthal is. Now, that's just the start of it, but that's not all of it. As you can see here, and this was reported by Defending Rights and Dissent, they were talking about what happened to Max here as well. And there seems to be a lawsuit that is in the works. So it says here, Defending Rights and Dissent Policy Director Chip Gibbons had this statement about what happened here. We condemn any detention or interrogation of journalists over their reporting at the U.S. border. Let me make this bigger, sorry. Seizing and potentially searching a journalist's electronic devices poses serious risk to press freedom. Journalists have not only a right, but a duty to report from countries under attack by the U.S. government and bring the U.S. people perspectives their government may not want them to hear. It is notable that while Max Blumenthal was not the only U.S. journalist in Iran to cover Khamenei's funeral, he is reportedly the only one to face harassment on his way home. And that's the part that you have to take home, guys. So he's the only one that faced this harassment. That's important. I know Patrick Henningsen was there. I think Dimitri was there. I don't know if Dimitri's based here, though, but there were multiple U.S. journalists that were there. The statement goes on to say this indicates that Blumenthal was potentially singled out due to his content, the content of his reporting, which has been highly critical of U.S. foreign policy, or due to an extended campaign against him led by pro-Israel McCarthyites. This is unacceptable and must be condemned in the strongest terms. However, It gets even crazier than that. Now, Max Blumenthal is receiving serious threats, which he did reveal here. I'm glad he made this public so that people know what's happening. Several days ago, I received a threatening letter informing me that I am moving up on the list and that I am fucked. The letter calls me a capo, indicating its authorship by a Zionist fanatic, possibly affiliated with an outfit like JDL Brotherhood 613 or from Batar Dead Enders who advocate violence against perceived enemies of Israel. I opened this letter as Israel-backed Trump admin allies like Laura Loomer portrayed me as a national security threat and demanded my persecution for reporting from Iran, and as the Trump administration harassed me by illegally seizing my phones. I am not the only person that has received these letters. Howard Heath, a state representative in New Hampshire who is campaigning for Congress on a pledge to cut off military aid to Israel, also reported receiving a letter from the same Your Dead Meat. I'm going to show you the letter in just a second. The return address applied to the letter is the field office of Representative Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian member in Congress. To me, this indicates that she and her staff could also be targets of whichever malicious individual or group sent the letter. I have filed a report with the local police and informed the U.S. Postal Service inspector of this threatening letter. So here's the letter here. As you guys can see, it says here, it's from Your Dead Meat. It says Southfield, Michigan. Address, of course, to Max Blumenthal. The postage, the stamp comes from Buffalo, New York. And you can see the letter here. It says, hey, fucking capo, you are moving up on the list. You are fucked, the committee. That's a threat. And Max did the right thing by reporting it. And you hear what he said about Laura Loomer? You see how Laura Loomer, it's just, I told you she's an agent. So Max Blumenthal's life could seriously be at risk here. This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is where the threats are coming from. Now, there is a lawsuit. The ADC has filed a lawsuit on my behalf against DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen over the seizure of my phones upon my return from reporting in Iran. It was clear to me that I was targeted because of my journalism for exposing U.S.-Israeli atrocities and expressing views that upset the Zionist forces, dictating Trump's Middle East policy. I'm also certain the unconstitutional act of intimidation was driven by Israeli-backed hooligans close to the Trump administration who demanded my persecution on baseless grounds as soon as I arrived to report in Iran. And you can see here, I'll show you the images. Here's the ADC case, Blumenthal versus Mullen. And here's document 2. This page 1 of 20 that you can see. So it has been filed. Max Blumenthal versus Mark Wayne Mullen. So, and this is why, and I say this, we got to have lawyers on retainer. We really do. Not just those in independent media, but honestly, like those of us that are part of the grassroots, we need to have a lawyer on retainer. I've been screaming this for quite some time because no, these people, now you're starting to mess with people's lives. Max Blumenthal, whether you agree with him or not, Max Blumenthal has a family. This is very dangerous. So not everybody is willing to do what he has done. And also with Max Blumenthal, he's not the type of person that's going to let this, stop him from doing what he's doing. He's still going to report. Like I said, he's been doing this for a long time. This is bullshit. They do it to him. They can do it to any one of you. Anyone. And that's a threat. So the grassroots, we need to have lawyers on retainer. They want Max Blumenthal to be trapped. they do this when they search and seize your phones, that is intimidation. The idea is that you will be so afraid or frustrated with the process that you won't do what you just did again. So you won't go back to Iran to report again. That's the whole idea. Now, I consider this to be an attack on free speech, an attack on journalism. We already saw Marco Rubio and, of course, Stephen Miller and his crazy ass. We already saw they announced they want to debank, defund, and arrest the radical left. So everybody get ready, because they're going to try to make an example out of him. And I say they're going to try to make an example out of him because of who his family is, right? So everybody knows, if you don't know this by now, everybody knows, at least I think they know, that Max Blumenthal's dad worked with the Clintons at one point. And that's why I say, if they will do this to him, they'll do it to anyone. One of the things that he reported on was really interesting here. This is when he visited a neighborhood in eastern Tehran that was attacked by 8 missiles launched by the U.S.-Israeli coalition in March of this year. This is some of the stuff they didn't want you to see.
On March 9th, 8 heavy missiles struck this densely populated neighborhood, completely residential neighborhood in eastern Tehran. 40 people were instantly killed, 35 wounded. What you see behind me are some of the 39,000 to 50,000 residential units in Tehran alone that were damaged or completely destroyed by the U.S.-Israeli coalition when it imposed war on Iran. And this doesn't do justice to the scale of destruction that I'm seeing. Almost this entire neighborhood was destroyed.
Yes, we were at home during the missile attack. It was exactly 2:30. It was 2:30 in the afternoon.
Did he know anyone who was killed?
Yes. We knew all our neighbors. In this house, 14 or 15 people were martyred here. There was a poor blind man here named Amir Hossein Samani, and that poor soul was martyred. Then in my own car wash, one person, a poor lady, was martyred. Someone lost a leg. In that house down there, 3 people were martyred. They were martyred, that's it. They fired a missile, sir. They hit people's homes. Otherwise, if it were a military place, this was people's home. That was people's home. All of these were people's homes that were hit by missiles. At that moment, you just don't feel anything anymore. When a missile hits you, there's nothing you can do.
What did you do?
Nothing. For a while, for about an hour, we were in shock. Then we gathered up my wife and kids because my own house was completely destroyed.
So you guys see this? So what we saw happen with the Manab school, that was just the beginning. There have been other Manab-style attacks that the U.S. has implemented in Iran, but corporate media is not covering it.
We gathered up my wife and kids and brought them outside. When a missile hits you, you just don't have any feeling left.
So just walking down the street, we came upon...
See that?
Clothes belonging to what looks like a maybe 1-year-old child, and
kid clothes.
Maybe their sibling, a brother or sister. I don't know if they were killed or maybe they weren't home, but these are the remnants of lives destroyed. These are still here from the March 9th strike. Children were here. The Secretary of War didn't care. Families were here. And they were slaughtered at night in their sleep if they happened to be home. And the destruction goes all the way down the street.
Y'all see this? So see, these aren't military bases. These aren't military hideouts. These were people's homes.
I was at the end of the street. I heard the sound of the explosion. We came and saw they hit here. His goal isn't to hit the IRGC, the army, or the Basij. His goal is to destroy our land. These media outlets doing this are working against us. When has America ever worked in our favor? Never. Right now, they're just looking to bring misery and ruin. Right now, the IRGC is here, the Basij is here, the army is here, the nation. Was this the IRGC? Was that house the IRGC? Was this house the IRGC? Was that house the IRGC? What about that other one? 10 houses here have been destroyed, hit. They were all civilian houses. The goal is that they are against us. They don't want the Muslim generation to exist. Their goal is to root out our generation, to root out the Iranian generation.
Yep.
I beg our people not to be fooled by these media outlets. Don't do it. Let's not hand our homeland over to the enemy on a silver platter.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what they did not want you to know about. That's why they came after Max Blumenthal. The U.S. government and Israel has been continuing to commit war crimes in Iran. And you'll see here, he gave an update about that family. I was told a family of 14 lived in the building that was destroyed where I found the kids' clothes. Only 2 members survived the U.S. attack because they happened to be out of town. All across Iran, there is evidence of Manab-style massacres in which the U.S. and Israel wantonly slaughtered civilians. The campaign of state terrorism continues today. So does everybody hear this? Make sure you share this with everyone. There are more than one Manab. There's more than one Manabs. Corporate media is not telling you about that. Let's go to some of the comments here, and then we'll get to the next story, ladies and gents. Thank you for the super chat, Dublin. Sabby, thank you for your hard work. Keep up the great work. Thank you. And thank you, Sherelle. Buffalo, I'm 2 hours away from there. Who we shaking down? Sherelle. Thank you, Roger. Yep. Blumenthal, dad worked for SOS Killery, Killshot. Clinton orchestrated the taking out of Gaddafi to protect petrodollar abandonment. Thank you for that. All right, ladies and gents, we're going to go into the next story here. Let's get into what is happening in Iran. Speaking of the meaning of trapped, holy smokes, the United States government is now trapped in this war with Iran, and that is because our leader has too much ego to admit he was wrong and back away. And 2, we have a government that backs this terrorist regime, this genocidal regime of Israel. Because now, let's see what just happened over the weekend. Iran says that they have officially exited the MOU. Listen to this.
We have not had any contact from the Americans for a few days regarding the negotiations.
Look, the negotiations we were in, unfortunately, the Americans themselves actually committed these aggressive acts in violation of their own commitments under the Memorandum of Understanding in this regard. What we are facing now is the defense of our country, unified and decisive. I think the Americans have received their answer this time as well, that these aggressive actions of theirs will lead nowhere. And in fact, if they are wise, they should choose other solutions. But for us, the path ahead is the firm defense of our country and teaching the aggressors a lesson. You see, in practice, America has trampled on all its commitments and halted them all. We too, under that Memorandum of Understanding, which was actually called the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, have also halted all of our commitments and are in fact no longer implementing them.
There's no other news.
We have no new updates other than the fact that we are currently busy defending our country.
Thank you.
So the U.S. government has done a number of attacks on Iran, including one of them being, of course, a war crime where they have attacked Iran's water. There are a number of people in Iran that are without water at this point in time now because of that. So Iran has been hitting back. In fact, you can see that report here on Al Jazeera when the water desolation was attacked.
Around 10,000 people across several villages in Iran are without water after overnight U.S. attacks. That's according to the head of Iran's national water company. Iran says US strikes hit desalination pumps in the city of Jask in southern Hormozgan province. The attacks also damaged bridges in the region. US Central Command says its seventh night of operations targeted surveillance sites, underground weapons storage facilities, and maritime capabilities. Iranian state media say at least 3 people have been killed in the southern province of Hormozgan. Explosions were heard in the cities of Sirak, Bushehr, and Bandar Abbas. The critical oil export hub of Kesheev Island was also attacked.
Now, I believe they should have the water back on now, but to attack water, that is a war crime. You cannot have it so that people do not have water to drink or water to use. And the U.S. has done this more than once against Iran. And I think, we're going to get into all of this. I don't think the U.S. wants to admit just how capable Iran has become when it comes to these attacks. As you're going to see, there are a number of people, especially corporate media hosts, that were shocked by the way that Iran hit back at the United States over the weekend, including on Sunday. It is continuing on and on. One of those countries in particular is Kuwait. Kuwait is one of the countries that was heavily hit. Those military bases that are in Kuwait, Iran is releasing weapons and missiles that are able to do tricks in the air. From what I have seen, they are hitting in a way that I don't think the U.S. government was really prepared for. Listen to this.
Vital resources are coming under fire in Kuwait today. Iran struck a power and desalination plant there, prompting urgent public warnings from the government. Those warnings were to conserve water and electricity, even as temperatures soar into the mid-40s.
Did you see that? Look at this missile. Look at this again.
Warnings from the government. Those warnings were to conserve water and electricity, even as temperatures soar into the mid-40s on the Celsius scale. Iran also says it targeted US assets in Oman, Jordan, and elsewhere, and it is threatening the ports of its Gulf neighbors.
All of these, Kuwait, Bahrain, and then we're going to get into what happened in Jordan. So again, I just want you to look at the position of some of these countries. Like obviously Kuwait is closest to Iran. Bahrain is also close to Iran, but Jordan's actually over here. Jordan is next to Syria and Iraq. So it has to go, they have to go over. They either have to go, over this way to Jordan, or they got to loop over Iraq to Jordan. Either way, it's further away than the other two. Ladies and gentlemen, Iran is not playing around. They have now entered the FAFO phase of this war. And the United States is finding out. They did something very strategic. They did not use, of course, their most powerful missiles at the start of the war. That makes sense. They wait to use the more powerful ones later on. And we don't even know if these are the most powerful ones that were just recently used. I kind of say, look at it as like a basketball team. It's like, or maybe not basketball. Well, yeah, maybe basketball. Like a basketball team. You got your starting 5, you have your forward, you have your guard, you have your center and all that kind of stuff. But every now and then you got to let them sit on the bench, let them conserve their energy. And then at the end, if it's down to like 30 seconds and the other team is 2 points ahead of you, then you might throw them back in so they can go ahead and win and wrap this up. Iran is saving the best for last. That's what they're doing here. So every time we see these new, strikes, there is concern from corporate media. And they're like, whoa, I didn't know they could do that. Or what was this weapon? Remember what I told you about the pilot who said he saw the jellyfish-shaped drones? So they've been preparing for a long time.
It's all coming after an escalation in US attacks, including strikes on bridges in the south of Iran in what was a 6th straight night of bombing. CNN's Nick Robertson joining us today from Jerusalem. And Nick, 30 days after the, very what felt like historic signing of that MOU, it does seem as if things have escalated in a way that makes it feel very uncomfortable in region. What do you make of these developments and where we are at?
I think obviously we're on an escalatory military cycle. I think that because neither side has said we're outrightly scrapping the MOU sort of remains marginalized completely on the sidelines of these military operations, but it's still a document that's intact. And one can possibly see a time where either side can recommend going back to that, having decided that through the military means at the moment, they're not getting where they want to. So I think on the...
We're going to pause him here because I don't think I see Iran going back to that MOU after this, after what has happened. Check this out. U.S. officials believe Iran has significantly upgraded its missile capabilities. According to the Wall Street Journal, Iran is now using missiles that travel at extremely high, what did I tell you? Extremely high speeds and can maneuver during their final descent, making them far more difficult for American missile defense systems to intercept. We are no match for Iran. I've seen some of these videos, how the missile will just go up in one way and then all of a sudden, the very last minute, just change direction and go in a different way. Our defense systems, they're having difficulty intercepting these missiles that can just change position and change direction at the last minute before it hits the ground. Officials are increasingly concerned that the improved accuracy of Iran's strikes, with some suspecting Tehran may be receiving assistance from China or Russia. Of course, they have no evidence to prove that. Here's one of those examples. This is Jordan. And there were U.S. troops that were killed during this attack. Here's one angle. You see how that hit like that? Let me show you another angle here. Here's another one. This was a direct missile hit on Mawafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. Now, this air base hosts U.S. troops and jets. So here's another angle here. You see that? The importance that you need to look at when you see this is the speed. Do you see how fast that, watch it again. See how fast that move? The speed. How do you intercept that? How do you intercept that? Something moving that fast. So that strike there in Jordan is ultimately what led to the death of some of these U.S. soldiers. This was breaking news on Saturday. Listen to this.
We begin tonight with breaking news. 2 U.S. service members killed and 1 missing after Iran launched missile and drone attacks against a military base in Jordan. Hostilities escalating following the collapse of that fragile ceasefire. This is the first time U.S. troops have been killed in combat since the fighting resumed 2 weeks ago. Videos circulating online appear to show the missiles hitting the air base, which houses U.S. personnel. 16 American troops have now been killed in this war. Here's ABC's Marcus Moore.
By the way, that number has now been updated to 14. I say, you know what I say, like add a 0 or something. They're saying now it's 14. It's probably actually 20 or even more than that. I don't know, but they downplay the numbers. That's important for people to understand. So we have service members, again, who were killed. Wait till you hear Pete Hegseth's response about the fallen.
Tonight, new American casualties in the war in Iran. CENTCOM saying 2 American service members have been killed and another is missing after Iran launched a drone and missile attack in Jordan. Video circulating online appears to show multiple projectiles raining down from the night sky, several appearing to hit the Mufawak Salti Air Base in Jordan, which houses U.S. personnel. 4 injured service members were evacuated to Jordanian hospitals and later released. Several others suffered minor injuries and have returned to duty. Tonight, there is no word on the condition of the missing service member. President Trump...
You hear that? So there was a service member that is missing, and it could be more than one that's actually missing. So do you see how U.S. troops are dying for Israel? You can't win this war. You can't win a war against Iran. And they know this. Donald Trump and them know this. That's why they wanted NATO countries to get involved. This is Donald Trump's legacy, by the way. This is going to be his legacy. Woo, buddy.
Reportedly telling News Nation the deaths were very sad, but Iran could not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. 16 Americans have been killed so far in this war and more than 400 wounded, according to the Department of Defense. These latest combat deaths are the first reported since the fighting restarted.
Again, that's important to note. These are the first reported since the fighting has restarted. Doesn't mean there aren't more soldiers that have died. You know, it's like if I say, well, there were 40 homicides in, New York City in December that were reported. That's the number that was reported. Doesn't mean there weren't more homicides that you just don't know about. So keep that in mind. They're going to try their best to keep the numbers low, just like they're still trying to keep the Gaza death numbers low.
And strikes on bases and facilities in the Gulf region, raising questions about the status of American missile defense.
So we know that we're drawing down rapidly our global stockpiles of these missiles, and we're not able to produce them fast enough to quickly replenish those stocks.
CENTCOM launching another round of strikes tonight on Iranian targets, including surveillance sites and military logistics infrastructure. And tonight saying they redirected 5 ships and disabled another one trying to run through an American blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, meanwhile, has been targeting its Gulf neighbors, launching missiles and drones at American bases in Jordan, Bahrain, and Kuwait. The U.S. ally saying it has been repeatedly hit, accusing Iran of targeting civilian infrastructure. On Saturday, smoke seen billowing from an oil facility. And Iran is elevating its threats. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei, who hasn't been seen publicly since he was severely wounded in the first days of the war, vowing, quote, unforgettable lessons for the American enemy. The escalation in this war coming as both sides now say the ceasefire negotiated in mid-June is over.
And let's all remember who was the reason the ceasefire came to an end. That was the U.S., once again, not following the rules of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, ultimately, you're seeing Americans are dying because of this war. Iranians are dying because of this war. And then also there's the economic, price to pay that everyone's having to deal with, which is the oil issue because of this war. Now, I want to show you what Pete Hegseth said about the soldiers that died. Godspeed, heroes. Their sacrifice only stiffens our resolve. Key word here is sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say this for the 100th time. Please tell your children not to join the military. If you can get out of the military. Because here's the thing. They are sacrificing American troops for Israel. You hear me? This war with Iran is not about the United States. This war with Iran is for Israel and the Greater Israel Project. And the U.S. sees Israel as an ally because the U.S. basically, Israel is a military base for the United States in the Middle East. That's basically what it is. Has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with the Jewish people. It's just a military base in the Middle East to make sure that the other Arab countries don't get a hold on those resources. That's what a lot of this is about. So sacrificing American soldiers for Israel. And I say this as someone who came from a military family, and I'm here to tell you, none of my family members that were in the military, if they could do it again, would do it again. None. This is where we're at now. This is where we're at now. Shout out to APAC Tracker for creating this. This is where we're at. Do you see Pete Hegseth getting on a plane to go fight for Israel and Iran? No, he's sacrificing your kids. You get me? Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, and that egg-shaped head dude, Stephen Miller, these people are sacrificing your brother, your sister, your children, your family members, your friends for Israel. They don't care how many Americans die. They don't care. Did they care in Iraq? Different administration, Sabby. Oh, but Donald Trump is talking more and more like the Bush neocon administration, especially when you see what he said Sunday. The United States is trapped. They got two options to get out of that trap. Donald Trump can tuck his ego between his legs and admit that he was wrong about Iran and pull everybody out and say, Israel, peace. Deuces. Or Donald Trump can also just say, look, we are not doing any more wars, period. Period. He could tell Netanyahu to kick rocks. Either way, the way out of this is to admit that you were wrong, to admit that you're failed, to admit that you can't even match Iran at this point in time. The guy just told you, the generals have been screaming, we do not even have the defense mechanisms to stop the missiles that Iran has. And you think that we can beat Iran? They want your kids to die for Israel. And here goes Joe Kent and his crazy ass too. Tonight, we will have to hit Iran hard in response to our troops being killed in Jordan. After that, we need to end this before it escalates further. You see how the former CIA guy, all of a sudden his rhetoric changed a little bit and say, we got to hit him back because our troops were hit. Strike and simultaneously pull our forces out, remove Iran's leverage, and move on to economic negotiations, restore order. So my response here to Joe Kent was this. When he said we have to hit Iran hard in response, my response was no, you don't. You can easily pack up your shit, take your bases out of the Middle East, and leave Iran alone. You don't have to do nothing. You've been firing from those bases in Jordan. You've been firing from those bases in Kuwait. That Iran is not supposed to respond. If the U.S. government really cared so much about those American troops, don't you think they would have evacuated those bases? They don't care. You're cannon fodder. So the U.S. did launch more attacks against Iran, of course, after that.
We begin with breaking news out of the Middle East. Just moments ago, U.S. Central Command announcing a new round of attacks on Iran. Military officials calling those attacks a punishment for Iran's attacks yesterday in Jordan that killed 2 U.S. service members and left a third missing.
With today's casualties, now 16 Americans have been killed since the U.S. launched a war with Iran and more than 400 injured. Iran says it is suspending its commitments in the peace deal with the U.S., calling President Trump's signature, quote, utterly worthless and devoid of credibility. ABC's Stephen Portnoy starts us off from Washington.
This is a major escalation, the first U.S. combat deaths in the Iran war since its earliest weeks. U.S. Central Command says the 2 service members were killed in Jordan as the U.S. defended against Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. A third service member is said to be missing in action. 4 more were so badly wounded in yesterday's attacks they had to be medically evacuated to hospitals, but the military says they have since been discharged. In total, some 427 U.S. service members have now been wounded and 16 have lost their lives in the Iran war.
Notice how the number is different depending on who you listen to. What was important that they said here was that, look, they can't stop this. They can't beat Iran. The U.S. government is trapped. And I'm going to show you what happened on Sunday, because Iran has been firing back. Kuwait, sucks to be you. Member of the Iranian National Security Council, Kuwait should know that its situation will not return to normal after this war ends. We consider the attacks carried out from the Kuwaiti territory as direct attacks, and you should know that we will respond to them in a special way. Kuwait? You see this? Bro, let's go back. I'm going to turn it up so you can hear what the guy is saying, because he's saying they're everywhere. Okay, listen to what he's saying. He's saying they're everywhere. Guys, you see all of these coming down at once? Look at this.
They're everywhere! They're sweeping the whole base!
Sweeping the whole base. That's one of them. Someone said that might be AI. I didn't see it as flagged as AI. I did check to see. But here's another one. Iran has struck Aqaba, Jordan, for a second time. Jordan again. You see this? So these countries, what they need to do is they need to get these bases out of their country. As long as they have the U.S. bases there, they are at risk. Now, here's what was really interesting. I think you guys will check this out. Fox News said they just don't understand how Iran has this capability.
You know, CENTCOM says that there will be outsized action in retaliation, but I don't understand how it's possible that Iran has the capabilities to fight this way and continue to try to lash out at Gulf countries and U.S. military bases, because the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military, and the president continues to reiterate that.
This woman has to be a complete fool and a clown. She does not understand how Iran has this capability, because according to her, after listening to Trump, the U.S. obliterated Iran's weapon capability. They obliterated their military. Are you a fool? See how they just read scripts? So now you got Fox News trying to do damage control because Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have been lying for such a long time about we destroyed their Navy. We destroyed their Air Force. When common sense will tell you if they destroyed those things, how is Iran still firing off missiles?
Yes, and if you look at the numbers of missiles that they've been able to fire off from the beginning of this war, late February, early March, and what they're able to do now, it is very seriously degraded. They've gone from over 100.
You know, CENTCOM.
Very seriously degraded, she said. But you can see the attacks that happen. Doesn't look degraded to me. They are continuing on with this lie like they continued on with the lie about weapons of mass destruction. They seriously want you to believe that, oh, look at this. Oh my God, they have no capability. It's very degraded when you're seeing the missile attacks are actually getting stronger. And if that is the case, why is Donald Trump trying to do this now? Donald Trump can't stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. So he is planning to allow Saudi Arabia to start uranium enrichment. This is the thing now. CNN reports that Trump administration has tentatively agreed to allow Saudi to enrich uranium on its territory without implementing the usual strict oversight mechanisms. So now all of a sudden, it's okay. See how that works? Again, U.S. can't beat Iran. They need help. This is where we're at now. So apparently it's okay for Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium, but it's not okay for Iran to enrich uranium. That also goes to show you it's not about, oh no, they might have a nuclear weapon. It's not really about that, is it? Trump is showing you that he's just as much of a neocon with this statement here. This is absolutely insane. Donald Trump said Republicans should add Iran to the Russian sanctions bill. That's what Lindsey wanted to do. And it was going to happen. Important. President Donald Trump. So here is Donald Trump pushing neocon Lindsey Graham talking points. That's a neocon move. And Donald Trump supports it and is advocating for it at this point in time. We all know Lindsey Graham is a neocon. So Donald Trump is a neocon. He's a neocon who masqueraded as an anti-war peace president, even though he was never peaceful. Even during his first term, he didn't start new wars, but he still bombed Syria. He killed Soleimani. Let's not forget. You can see they are already prepping for false flag alerts here. Alert. The U.S. State Department has issued a worldwide caution over heightened Middle East tensions, warning Americans everywhere to exercise increased caution. It cites potential for escalation, flight cancellations, airspace closures, and threats to U.S. facilities and interests worldwide. Notice they say worldwide. That's the important part, not just in the Middle East. So get ready for a false flag, possibly. Whether it's on American soil or any of the NATO countries, whether it's their soil, get ready for that. They got to try to get the support back towards Israel somehow. I don't think it's going to work, though. People are woken up too much now. None of this would have happened if the U.S. government would have just left Iran alone. But they're trapped now. They created this situation. They can easily get out of it, but they choose to remain trapped. Donald Trump, that ego is massive as hell. Won't admit this is a failure. I was wrong. Let's just, end this and let it go. Won't admit it at all. Benjamin Netanyahu is set to come back to the United States either this week or next week. There's Zoran Mamdani, who is looking into possible arrest for him because Benjamin Netanyahu has an arrest warrant. He has a warrant out for his arrest. So this is where we're at now. How many more American troops are going to have to die for ego, Israel, and supremacy? How many more? Ask yourself that question. Because based on what I've seen the past couple of days, Iran, they're going to be fine. Let's go to the next story here, ladies and gents. Let's go to some of the comments here. Uptight says no more U.S. bases in the Middle East after this. I'm telling you. Thank you, Roger. Bring back the jellyfish. Thank you, JB. Trump was stupid enough to demand total surrender. Thanks, JB. Israel, you in danger, girl. And thank you, Roger. With population decline in the U.S. in full effect and Gen Z losing, not reproducing, letting themselves be used for cannon fodder by the U.S. government will only hasten decline. And thank you for this one, Roger. Moral of the story, stop enlisting. God damn it. And thank you, Deep Green. Of course, BB is coming back to do laundry. Yep, coming back to wash his dirty clothes. That's what happens there. All right, ladies and gents, if you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid and smash that like button for me. Thank you. And we're heading into an interesting story here at home. Over the weekend, a couple of sinkholes, they look pretty massive, have popped up. One in Baltimore and one in Los Angeles. Many are starting to ask, what is going on? Let's start with Baltimore. Massive sinkhole again, my old stomping ground.
Sinkhole opened up in East Baltimore on North Chester Street. It happened just before 12:30 overnight and swallowed up a car, according to police. The driver of the vehicle was a 50-year-old woman who police say was able to escape without any injuries. The car was also partially submerged in water. The Department of Public Works says a water main and a storm drain have been impacted as a result of the sinkhole. They are working on repairs and expected to take multiple days. For the time being, roads near North Chester and Ashland Avenue in East Baltimore will remain closed.
All right. JB says, I'm in Baltimore. The sinkhole is right beside Johns Hopkins Hospital. That's what I was going to say. That's near Johns Hopkins. So that's the sinkhole there in Baltimore. And then there's another image here that I want to show you. Philip Lewis shared this. A sinkhole swallowed a car in Baltimore late last night. So you can see a close-up of the image. So there's the car, and you can see the water is also running through the car. Now, when I first saw the stories about these sinkholes that popped up over the past couple of days, it reminded me of that show called La Brea. It's on Netflix if you guys haven't seen it, but La Brea was about this big sinkhole that happened in Los Angeles, and the people like went through the sinkhole and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of what it reminded me of. But guys, this just goes to show you again, like how weak our infrastructure can be. Now, obviously there was a water main issue here, similar to what you're going to see with Los Angeles, but there are ways that sinkholes can be prevented, which I also want you to understand, and I'll show you as well. But you can see that car is donezo. Yeah, that could you imagine like driving and then all of a sudden, woo, Los Angeles. Another one happened here. West Hollywood streets flooded, cars submerged after a water main break. So there was a water main that broke in LA, which apparently they're saying led to their sinking.
All right, if you are just joining us, we are continuing to follow this major water main break out of West Hollywood. It happened just after 3 o'clock this morning, around 3:15. Major water main broke at a very busy intersection. We've been following this with team coverage all morning long. We're awaiting perhaps a joint news conference by LA Mayor Karen Bass, as well as West Hollywood's mayor. We also have Mario Ramirez, who's been out there at the scene all morning long. This caused extensive flooding all morning. This is pictures that you were looking at from earlier today. The water has since been shut off. A 36-inch water main underneath Holloway and Sunset, a main thoroughfare there in West Hollywood. It broke, carrying hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. We saw a number of condos, apartments, businesses impacted by this. The water significant enough and forceful enough to push cars down the road, to buckle and cause a giant sinkhole in the middle of the road, but also wash out some parts of the sidewalk. And Mario was telling us this earlier, that several people were walking on top of that sidewalk and it actually collapsed underneath their feet. Not sure.
So do you see that? You hear that? That the sidewalk started to collapse under their feet. And this is what I was saying. Like, we have issues in the United States. We have issues here that we need to deal with. right? And our infrastructure is not top notch. There are a couple of bridges I can take you over right here in Massachusetts and in Boston that are a little shaky, you know, because when I drive over, like the Tobin Bridge is one to point out. Every time I drive over the Tobin Bridge, I feel like I need to say a wish and a prayer, because that bridge is extremely old. And I'm just waiting, you know, there's bridges that have like little holes on them and stuff like that. It's one of those things. So we have our own issues that we have to take care of here.
What the injuries are there.
They were able to climb out. In fact, let's get right to Mario. He's there at the scene, and we're still awaiting that press conference from city officials, from Mayor Bass. Mario.
Yeah, that's right, Bob. And we could see Mayor Bass. She's being briefed by LA County fire officials, the public information officer here on the scene as well. And she arrived maybe about 15 minutes ago from what we could tell. And you see that massive sinkhole here at the intersection of Sunset and Holloway Drive. That's where we arrived this morning. It was around 3:15. It was reported. The road there started buckling in multiple places.
I'm just going to go back a little bit so you can see the close up of the sinkhole.
Section of Sunset and
You see how big this sinkhole is? Again, just imagine driving your car and all of a sudden the ground just opens up like, whoop. Right? We have our own problems with infrastructure in this country, things that we have to deal with. But we sending money elsewhere. Now, Los Angeles sends thousands of dollars to Israel. You get what I'm saying? So here we go.
Holloway Drive. That's where we arrived this morning. It was around 3:15. It was reported. The road there started buckling in multiple places and water started gushing out. It then made its way down to Holloway Drive and down Palm Avenue, where several garages have been flooded. Residents waking up to some damage near the front of their homes. And I want to bring in Bill Adams, right?
Yes.
Bill, what street do you live on? And tell me,
I live on Shoreham, just a block up this hill here.
And do you have water where you are?
Yeah, it's about, have half as much pressure as I usually have. And I woke up to the sound of all of these helicopters and just came down to investigate.
We've also been hearing these alarms. I'm sure the viewers can hear them as well. They've been going on since we've got here. They haven't stopped. What's your reaction to see that massive sinkhole?
That's awful. But I mean, that's a big problem in LA already, because so many of the pipes are so old. They go back to 20s or 30s. So I think there's this, we have a lot of work to do in LA anyway.
So we got old pipes, and LA is newer than Boston. Boston is a very, very old city. The first subway, you guys know that Boston, we have the first subway in the country. New York has, best subway system, but we have the oldest subway system in the country. So pay attention to what he said there about the old pipes. This is what I was saying about our infrastructure. Things that needed to be repaired, rebuilt, have not been done. We have been putting money, not you and me personally, but our government has been putting money into war abroad. And that's why we have this bloated ass defense budget instead of taking care of things right here at home. Now, I would imagine most people that live in LA are renters, right? Similar to Boston, most people who live in LA are not homeowners, right? Because of the cost of living. So if most people who live in LA are renters, and they have to deal with this destruction, whether it's their car or whether it's their apartment building, then that is now disruption. They have to find somewhere else to live. They may have to get another car if they can afford to even do that. So this is the reality, folks. And then I want to show you some other images here so you can see the water coming in.
From one lady earlier this morning saying she's walking to work because she just lives a few blocks down from her workplace. So it's definitely still a concern. A lot of the businesses here are not opening. There's a cafe here just behind me, Dialogue Cafe, that should be open. The alarm is going off here at this law firm building. You have the Supreme Clothing Store, which is right next to the parking lot we're standing in. So you have to imagine this is a very busy area, especially throughout the morning, throughout the day as traffic starts picking up. And it doesn't look like this is going to be opened up anytime soon, because the damage here is just incredible to see. The amount of, the concrete that has collapsed because of all that gushing water that we saw for hours and hours before even an agency, the LADWP, came forward and said, it's our pipe, we're working on it, we've shut it off, and we'll be handling this. So
You know, and the more this happens, I start to wonder how much of this is intentional. You know, sometimes I wonder about that. Another thing to remember, LA is not good with dealing with flooding because that doesn't usually, it's not a known issue for them, right? Whereas like some of the southeastern states, like the Carolinas, where I used to live, like because the hurricane season, you know, you get flooding and you know how to deal with it over the years. But Los Angeles isn't used to getting like dealing with flooding like that. So that's another thing, right? So I just wanted you to see some of the images. Here's another one here where you can see the water just
Across the
gushing.
city. We've covered so many of these water main breaks, and usually, fortunately, they're shut off within, you know, a shorter time span. But we were out here at, you know, close to 3:30, and we saw that water gushing for over 3 hours before it stopped. So some of the issues.
That part right there, I wanted you to catch. He said usually it's shut off at a shorter time frame, but he said it went on for 3 hours before it was shut off. And that's why I start to question if some of these things are intentional. Who lets the water just run for 3 damn hours like that? So think about these things. Now, there's another image I want to show you as well. See, we have our things that we need to deal with. This one is another image of the water moving through West Hollywood.
A surge of raging floodwaters rushing through the streets of West Hollywood. Look at the force of the water, thousands of gallons damaging homes and businesses along its path. This
damaging homes and businesses. So there you go.
Aerial footage showing the widespread flooding, cars smashing into each other, water filling this metro bus yard. John Kitty's Klimak from NBC Los Angeles was on the scene.
This is by far the worst because as you see everything coming down, it looks incredibly dramatic.
Officials say a major water main break caused the deluge early this morning. A sinkhole opening up near the Sunset Strip. This video shows two men as they scramble to get themselves out.
Whoa, did the ground just fall?
Watch this person caught clinging on in the rushing waters, struggling to keep from being swept away.
Now, the major operation happening in the middle of the Sunset Strip. Take a look at the sinkhole behind me. This is the middle of Sunset Boulevard. Part of the road and the sidewalk both collapsed.
Couples Stacy and Nate are in disbelief. In the garage below, they see at least 50 cars trapped under the floodwater, including theirs.
It's a complete mess here.
So officials don't know what caused the break, but noted that water main is more than 100 years old. No injuries reported. The drinking water is safe, but the cleanup here could take some time.
More than 100 years old. So, yep, but we don't invest in our infrastructure. This is another example of that. And again, like we don't say, oh, we told you so with this type of thing. We don't want this kind of stuff to happen to people. But there's another image here that I want you to see. Another close-up, massive sinkhole shuts down Sunset and Hollywood and West Hollywood.
See how full that sinkhole is from the water main break earlier this morning. It looks like they're starting to hook up some pumps there and siphon some of that water out so they can get down in there and start working on the main line. And then you can see the street that's buckled as well. So this is going to take some time, likely several days to make repairs to this section. It's right at the intersection of Sunset and Holloway. And so expect Sunset to be shut down for about a block in each direction from Holloway. We're not seeing a lot of congestion as far as traffic on Sunset. And we'll start to make our way down Palm Avenue, which is where that water was rushing down earlier this morning. There's still a closure here on Palm Avenue between Sunset and Santa Monica Boulevard. You can see firefighters that are here assessing the damage that occurred here on Palm. So we're going to make our way down to Santa Monica. Santa Monica was closed and was flooded earlier on this morning. So they have reopened that since. So you can make your way through on Santa Monica Boulevard.
I'm telling you guys, this is America. This is something that Mayor Karen Bass is going to have to deal with. And I haven't heard anything from Gavin Newsom yet. He's too busy, I guess, planning to run for president and trying to figure out whether or not he knows what AIPAC is. See what I mean? The real issues that we got to deal with at home. Now, there are ways to prevent sinkholes. I want to show you this one here. It's pretty interesting. All right, check this out. Removing too much groundwater can leave underground holes leading to sinkholes. This was an example of with Florida, but this can be prevented. And this is one of those things where, again, this is not it's all hopeless. No, it's not all hopeless. Because like I said, this can be prevented. Check this out. Many natural sinkholes can be prevented. However, those caused by human activity may be avoided, especially those caused by overpumping groundwater. What did they say was the cause of the sinkhole in Baltimore and Los Angeles from the weekend? The water, right? The pipes and all that type of stuff. This can be prevented. During dry conditions, they give the example with Florida. They say that water tables drop in the limestone and cavities under Florida sand and clay soil. The combination of gravity loss and buoyancy and water pressure can activate a collapse. By keeping water tables high, water conservation rules and drought restrictions are tools to help prevent sinkholes from occurring. So it says here that you can issue watering restrictions to prevent water shortages and overpumping during those inevitable times. So now that I have shown you that sinkholes can be prevented, why aren't these cities preventing them from happening? This is why I wonder sometimes, are some of these things being done on purpose? You will own nothing. People will be forever renters and forever subscribers. Everything is subscription based nowadays, it seems like. I call rent a subscription too. So you're renting, but you can't own the place. And I talked to a friend of mine that did rent to own one time, and she said it was a scam. You're renting, but you can't own the place. You have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. But then you got to keep paying it. You always got to keep paying it now. You can't just say, I'm going to pay this amount of money and I have this subscription permanently. No, you have to continue to pay. Adobe Suite is horrible with this, but a great example of this as well. Adobe, for those of us that are creative types that use Adobe Photoshop, Lightroom, any of those types of things, you have to pay for that. It's a subscription and you have to continue to subscribe. You get what I'm saying? So everything is moving subscription based, rent based. You will own nothing. There you go. So you talk about being trapped. I mean, yeah. Could you imagine being trapped in a sinkhole? I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay. We got one more story for you, ladies and gents, and then that will be our Sunday fun day. Hey, hey, hey. Let's go ahead and get to the last story. If you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid by smashing that like button and like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Let's keep it moving. Let's get to Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy is in the hot seat yet again. Now, he is running for governor of Ohio after his whole Doge, I guess, bromance with Elon didn't work out too well. And I want to show you where he is right now in the polls and why that matters. And we're going to connect this to what he just said right now about Black Americans, because he seems to be obsessed with Black Americans in this country. I don't know what this is all about, but we're going to get into it. It is not a shoo-in for Vivek Ramaswamy to win that governor race. The poll is getting closer and closer and closer. Check this out.
New political developments suggest this contest may be far more competitive than the numbers alone indicate. Let's break down the latest forecast, the polling trends, and the biggest news shaping this race. According to the latest PollsMax governor forecast, Republican nominee Vivek Ramaswamy is projected to receive 52.2% of the vote, while Democratic nominee Amy Acton is projected at 47.8%. That gives Republicans a projected 4.4-point advantage if the election were held based on the current forecast model. However, when we look at the polling averages instead of the forecast, the race becomes dramatically closer. The latest polling average trend shows Vivek Ramaswamy, 47.0%, Amy Acton, 46.2%.
See, this is important for people to see as well, because here's the thing. A forecast and the actual, average trend are two different things. I have noticed that Polymarket, that's one of them. I think another one is Kesheev. They have really gotten in the political game and they've been making these predictions. Just because Polymarket predicts something electorally doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to happen. It's true. But I feel like there's been a lot of money that has been thrown in that direction. And it's getting annoying for those of us that are very much engaged politically to see people post a Polymarket trend and say, look at the polling between these two candidates. That's not a poll. That's it. They're betting odds, right? So people have been deferring to that. The point is this: Vivek Ramaswamy, as much as people may believe it's a shoo-in for him, not necessarily. Look at how tight the numbers are now. Okay. And so because those numbers are so tight, now he got endorsed by Donald Trump. Ohio, I don't call it a swing state anymore. I call Ohio a red state. But the problem that Vivek is going to run into, and he's been dealing with, but doesn't really want to talk about it because he's throwing that anger towards Black people instead. The problem that Vivek Ramaswamy is running into is the fact that there's a portion of the MAGA base that really just don't like his ass. There's a portion of the MAGA base that tells Vivek Ramaswamy to go back to India, even though he was born in America, but we'll get to that. There's a portion, I see it all the time online. They tell him go back to India. They were very upset when he made that comment about American workers just not working hard enough or not being intelligent enough, and that we need more H-1Bs from India, etc. So that pissed them off. Okay. And Vivek basically got his wake-up call that, hey, just because you were kissing Donald Trump's ass and you were kissing JD Vance's ass and all that kind of stuff and you ran in the Republican primary, that don't mean they actually want you around. Because for all of his obsession about Black Americans, Vivek is starting to realize, because these things have been said vocally towards him, he's starting to realize, guess what? Some of them don't see you as one of them either, boo. Okay? But you were too busy crapping on Black people. In fact, this is what he said about us recently. He just can't leave us alone.
Supposed aid from Lyndon Johnson's Great Society that actually rolled back some of the benefits that Black families enjoyed, like a stable family foundation in the 1960s, no longer the case today, in part because the government gave them an incentive to live in single-parent households rather than dual-parent households. Affirmative action, effectively a cancer on our national soul, in part because it's a form of psychological slavery that holds Black Americans back by teaching them that they can't get ahead without actually somebody giving them a boost.
So let's talk about this for a second, right? He talks about the Black family home and stabilization. You know what he doesn't mention? When we talk about the father being taken out of the home, he's basically trying to talk about those welfare programs where, in order for the Black household to qualify for those programs, the father could not have been in the home, right? So it had to be a single parent home, etc. We'll get back to that in just a second. Vivek Ramaswamy doesn't talk about or mention how Black fathers were taken away from Black families during slavery. Why doesn't he ever talk about that? Why does he only go back to these welfare policies of Lyndon B. Johnson? Why doesn't he go back to what started to break up the Black family household was during slavery, when they sold off the fathers to other plantation masters and ripped them from the children? Why doesn't he talk about that? Why doesn't he talk about the way that they took slave babies away from the mother when the mother was pregnant, the way they would take the baby out of the stomach. It gets too graphic. I can't discuss it all on here. Why doesn't he talk about that? Why doesn't he talking about how slave babies were sometimes used and fed to alligators? Why doesn't he talk about that? So that's the first point. The second point here, and he's talking about basically that, well, Black people just fell into this mindset of wanting a handout, etc. You have to understand the period that he's talking about. This is the period during Jim Crow. He is basically saying that Black families were better off during Jim Crow. Now, there's data that talks about what happened during the period of Reconstruction. He leaves out the fact that there were multiple Black Wall Streets that were created, and every time that happened, and those Black communities were thriving economically because the dollar was turning and maintaining in that said community. He leaves out the fact that white people came and burned those villages down. Why doesn't he mention that? Why doesn't Vivek Ramaswamy mention Seneca Village? Why doesn't he mention that every time Black people started the Black Wall Streets and started these types of communities where the dollar could turn in the community because we had our own businesses and all that kind of stuff? Why doesn't he talk about how racist white people burned it down? It's not just Tulsa. There were Black Wall Streets in North Carolina too. Okay. So let's get back to the Jim Crow part. Okay. Because see, Vivek Ramaswamy and his corny ass, yes, he was born in the US, but his parents immigrated here. If Vivek Ramaswamy wants Black families to go back to the time during Jim Crow, when we had all these different laws against us and all that type of stuff, I just want to remind you that Vivek Ramaswamy's family would have never been able to come here. Because what he refuses to leave out is immigration and the connection to the civil rights movement. So let's go ahead and get into this part here, and we'll come back to his craziness. The history of the civil rights movement and the intersections with the immigration law. Because see, he want to always like crap on us, right? The Immigration Act in 1924, this required a quota system for nationalities, right? Hold on to that. At the height of the civil rights movement, the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act was passed. In enacting the INA of 1965, Congress eliminated the quota system based on national origin. It was Congress' intent to equalize immigration opportunities for groups previously subjected to discriminatory immigration laws and practices. So let me ask you a question, since Mr. Obsessed with Black people, because I'm gonna show you another clip where this guy is just obsessed with us. If we would have maintained the same system and policies under Jim Crow, meaning if there were no civil rights movement and Jim Crow laws stayed in effect, Vivek Ramaswamy, your parents don't get to come here, fam. Which means you are not born here, Vivek. So the same way he wants to point his finger and snub his nose down at Black Americans, because I see what this is really all about. There's a little bit of jealousy here. He won't admit it, but I'm gonna break it down for you, okay? Vivek Ramaswamy is one of those people that really tried to align himself with white supremacy. As you can see that during his presidential race, and also, of course, during this governor race. He had tried to align himself with white supremacy because he knows that's what's needed to be a part of this Trump MAGA movement, whatever. But then this backfired because they let him know that they don't see him as one of them either. So they had to check his ass. Vivek Ramaswamy then takes that same energy and he throws it towards the black community because he don't have the strength and the power to throw it back in their face because he needs their vote. You hear me? He knows that black people aren't lining up to vote for him. He knows this. So instead of screaming back at them, the people calling him names, telling him go back to India and all that shit, he's still trying to kiss their ass. So he is dumbing his nose down at us, at black people. Well, I might be, Indian American here, but at least I'm not black. So let me just shit on the black folk. This man has been obsessed with us for the longest time. This guy always talking about black people need to do this. Black people need to do that. Black. Does Vivek have any black friends? Why are you so obsessed with what black people are doing, Vivek? Vivek Ramaswamy, who went to Harvard. Attended the Al Sharpton event at the Kennedy Center along with Pete Buttigieg. They were at the same damn event. You see how these people are plucked out early on? Vivek Ramaswamy, who was a Soros fellow. I don't believe Vivek Ramaswamy was a Republican all this time. I believe Vivek Ramaswamy switched because he felt like this was something that he could grift off of. And he saw that MAGA was like this growing thing. So I think he changed to what he thought was going to help him get elected. That's what I think. Listen to what he said. And I'll never forget this. This goes back to when Don Lemon was still on CNN. Listen to what he said about black people on CNN.
Direction. The very policies that we implemented in this country in the name of helping black Americans have actually been disastrous for black Americans and all Americans. And I think that's something that we need to wake up to.
In 1865, you were talking about the black codes, right?
That's right.
Passed, enacted to make it a crime for a black person to carry a gun in the South. But you're equating that to the current president? You're referring to economic change? What are you saying?
Well, I was referring to Joe Biden's, I think, ill-chosen expression to say they're the party that wants to put you back into chains. What I'm actually saying is that if you look at the policies of the modern Democratic Party.
Democrats.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is that actually it's policies like that of Lyndon Johnson and Joe Biden that are actually holding black Americans back.
The war on poverty?
Yes. And in particular, his Great Society, where he actually created incentives in the family, where if you're a family, you could actually get more money by not having the father in the home.
What?
Yes. So that is true. They did give you more money if you didn't have the father in the home. But where are black people now? Okay. Because I don't know too many black people that are on welfare. Real talk. Not today. Maybe if you would have asked me back in the 90s, I knew a bit more. I don't know too many black people who are on welfare right now. But that's not just something that was given towards black people. Vivek obviously doesn't really know the history. This is something that people need to understand. Public housing started to be built after the war. So when soldiers were coming back from the war, they built housing for them. You get me? Remember I told you about Levittown? Okay, so Levitt start those single family homes that Levitt was building. We call them like starter homes or whatever, right? The idea was that as a starter home, but you can add on to it. You can add additions to it. That was a part of that wave too. They were building those homes because people were coming back from the war. That was public housing. Black people weren't allowed to live in Levittown. It was white people living in those homes. Why doesn't Vivek mention that? Why does he leave out the fact that those public housing, that public homes in the beginning that was built for the soldiers who were coming back from the war? Whoo, man.
That's what you get. You get what you pay for. I think it's been really bad for the black community. I think it's really bad for all Americans.
What do you have anything on this before I move on to China?
I don't see what one has to do with the other, but go on. I took up a lot of time with Fox.
Oh, it's fine. We have time.
I don't really see what one has to do with the other, especially and using the Civil War to talk about black Americans. That war was not fought for black people to have guns. That's not
That war was fought for black people to have freedoms in this country. Yeah. Actually, that's why the Civil War was fought.
Okay.
And the sad
that
part about
fought for black people to have guns. I think.
Actually, you know, funny fact is black people did not get to enjoy the other freedoms until their Second Amendment rights were secured. And I think that that's one of the lessons that we learned.
Still aren't allowed to enjoy the freedoms.
I disagree with you on that, Don.
So here you have Vivek. This guy, he swears he knows so much about black people and the black community. First of all, the Civil War was not fought so that black people could have guns. The fuck is he talking about? Tell that to the Black Panthers, in particular, the ones that were shut down under Ronald Reagan in California. The reason why you have some of those stricter gun laws today is because when the Black Panthers showed up in California carrying the guns, Ronald Reagan said, oh no, we can't have those Negroes with guns. We got to implement tougher gun laws. That's where that comes from. By the way, and I told you guys, if you're new, you don't know this, but I told you guys before, I 100% support the Second Amendment. I think you got a right to protect yourself. The Black Panthers were right. I 100% support that. But the Civil War was not fought so that black people could have guns, could become gun owners. And here he is basically telling Don Lemon, I know more than you do about your community, even though you're black.
I disagree with you. And I think you're doing a disservice to our country by failing to recognize the fact that we have equality before the law.
And you live in this country, then you can disagree with me. But we're not. You mentioned in here that we have three different shades of melanin.
Don, I think we have to be able to talk about these issues in the open, regardless of the color of our skin. Black Americans today, to say that, compare that to 1865 and 1964,
I think for you to compare it to 1865 and 1964
is
actually, I think it's insulting to black people. It's insulting to me as an African American. I don't want to sit here and argue with you because it's infuriating for you to put those things together. It's not right. Your telling of history is wrong.
What part of the history was wrong?
What part of the history was wrong? That the Civil War was fought. You're making people think that the Civil War was fought for black people, only for black people to get guns and for black people to have.
The Civil War was fought for black people in this country to get freedoms, a noble mission. And I think that even after we succeeded, we had to actually secure those freedoms.
To reduce it in a speech at the NRA to say you're making people think, or you're trying to say that black people to get guns, that was the reason that you're there at the NRA. That was the reason for the Civil War.
It is a fact.
That's reductive.
It's not reductive.
I think it's insulting. There are a whole plethora of reasons that for the Civil War.
With due respect, I find your explanation reductive and actually insulting, including to black Americans, to say that black people today, compared to 1964, 1865, haven't made progress in part because of the freedoms we secured. And the Second Amendment was part of what secured that freedom.
I cannot keep a thought if you guys are talking to me in my ear. So hang on one second. So to say that black people, say what you said again.
Black people secured their freedoms after the Civil War. It is a historical fact, Don. Just study it. Only after their Second Amendment rights were secured.
They were not secured their freedoms after the Civil War. That is not, you are discounting Reconstruction. You're discounting a whole host of things that happened after the Civil War when it comes to African Americans, including the whole reason that the Civil Rights Movement happened is because black people did not secure their freedoms after the Civil War, and that things turned around. People tried to change the freedoms that were supposed to happen.
And you know how they got it? They got their Second Amendment rights, and they actually got, the NRA played a big role in that. But today, Don, the
NRA did not play a big role in that.
They trained black Americans how to use firearms.
That's a lie. That's not. The NRA did not play a big role.
This is just historical fact. But Don, the part that I find,
because you say it's historical fact,
the part that I find insulting is when you say today black Americans don't have those rights after we have gone through civil rights revolution in this country.
You are sitting here telling an African American about the rights and what you find insulting about the way I live, the skin I live in every day.
Here's where you and I have
the
a different point of view.
See, this is what happens. We got to drop the beat here.
Let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give them a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure.
A moment can live on forever. See, this is what happens when you get those Harvard types like Vivek, and not everybody that went to Harvard, but you get some of those Harvard types that have been propped up. Like I said, he was a Soros fellow. This is what happens when you talk to some of these people. They think they know every damn thing. And the way that he was disrespecting and talking to Don Lemon that way, that's ridiculous. Now, I got my hangups about Don Lemon too, because I think he was just slipped for the blue, no matter who, and all that kind of stuff. But Don Lemon is correct here, and Vivek doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Let me show you something. Mr. Know Everything, right? Okay. Let me ask you a question. When you look at what happened with Vivek's family, right? Because he loves to go on this rant about his family came here with nothing. Always be wary when you hear someone say their family came here with nothing. All you had to do, quick look up, quick search, and you could see this for yourself. Let's see if they came here with nothing, okay? Vivek's father and his father was the graduate of National Institute of Technology, Calicut. That's in India. He worked as an engineer for General Electric, and his mother graduated from Mysore Medical College and Research Institute. That's in India. His parents did not come here with nothing. His parents came here with college degrees. And we'll get into the citizenship part in just a second, since he think he know every damn thing, okay? Because this exposes some things. They didn't come here with nothing. And had it not been for the civil rights movement, they wouldn't even be here because there were quotas. That's the point people need to understand. But instead of Vivek choosing to align with, let me, try to align with Black voters and hear where they're coming from, he chooses to align with white supremacy because a lot of times, and I said this before on the show, a lot of times, some of them that come here, this is what they do. Not all, but some of them, this is what they do. They choose to align with white supremacy instead of trying to allow with the Black community or people who may be closer to them in some respects, because their goal is, let's see how I can achieve the American dream. And I'm going to try to get as close to the whiteness as possible. So that's what a lot of times they try to do. Whatever, be you. But my thing is this, you don't then turn around and snub your nose down and shit on the Black communities when you don't even know our history. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's a part of the Brahmin caste. Do people understand that? His parents hail from the Palakkad district. It's one of the 14 districts in the India state of Kerala. The family had an ancestral Agraham home. This type of home, as you can see for yourself, this was a grant of land of royal income. And Agraham was a grant of land and royal income from it. This part here in the southern part of India, it is particularly to Brahmins. That is the higher class in India. So this is why I said this guy is an actor. Vivek Ramaswamy is a puppet, another Soros puppet who is playing a part. And because he's in Ohio, and Ohio's no longer a swing state, he ran as a Republican because Ohio is a red state now. You can't convince me that this guy was always Republican. This guy wasn't always no damn Republican. He wasn't even always MAGA. He's an actor. So Vivek Ramaswamy's family did not come here with nothing. They came here with degrees, and they came here from the upper class in India. So stop. And then to come here and basically turn his nose down on Black people. Let me tell you something. When he was questioned about his father, this was another thing that was exposed. Listen to what he said about his father's citizenship. Check this out.
Talked about your mother's experience with the citizenship test. You've also talked about having something similar for folks who graduate high school in order to vote, having a civics test similar to what your mother took. You've lately been talking on the campaign trail more about your mother than your father, and some folks have been asking questions, and I just want to be super clear. Did your father also take the citizenship test, and is your father a citizen?
He did not, and that's a choice that he has made for familial reasons, but my mother did. And I think that
every immigrant who comes to this country in order to become a full voting citizen has to do the same. And I believe in being consistent about my policies where...
So your father is not a citizen of the United States?
He's not.
Okay.
But he over here talking about black people. Vivek Ramaswamy is part of a party and support the Trump administration who wanted these policies against immigrants in this country that are not citizens, who wanted to overturn the birthright citizenship. But Vivek Ramaswamy is a member of someone who got birthright citizenship. So why is he supporting a party that is against everything that he really much came from? His father is not a citizen, apparently still to this day. So he benefited from birthright citizenship. The Trump administration is against birthright citizenship. Why was Vivek Ramaswamy kissing Donald Trump's ass and all that, rubbing elbows with them, but you turned your nose down at the black people? You over here talking about us. What we need to do. Worry about yourself. Chuck Modi made a really good point. Vivek's pathological need for white supremacist acceptance, even after they rejected him, is one of the most astounding and pathetic case studies of self-hate in political history. Chuck is right. You don't like your own self, Vivek. That's why he come after us, because he don't like himself. He don't like himself. That's why he coming after us. And complexion wise, he's closer to our complexion than he is to Donald Trump's complexion. Well, maybe not Trump. Trump's kind of orange, but he's closer to our complexion than he is to like JD Vance's complexion. Vivek, one of them ones, like he remind me of the Zionist Ethiopians in Israel that like to shit on the Palestinians. Like they get shit on too by the Israelis, but at least they're not Palestinian. So they dump on the Palestinians. So they're not not at their level. So Vivek does this thing where he kind of in the middle, and it's like he getting shit on by the white people, but he want to be a part of them so badly, begging for their acceptance. And not all of them, but you guys know what I'm talking about, begging for their acceptance. And so he shit down on the black people. It's like, hey, I'm not white, and the white people might, look down on me, but at least I'm not one of those black folk. So I got someone that I can dumb my nose down on. The majority of black voters are not Republican. Why is he spending so much time talking about black people? This dude almost sounds kind of jealous. Like it's kind of weird to me. It's a little weird to me. We'll get to the mutual aid part in a second. But it's weird to me. So what people have to understand, when I said that we talked before about JD Vance being a creation of Peter Thiel, you got to understand that Vivek Ramaswamy is also a creation. George Soros fellow decided to become MAGA because the state he's from is a red state. Let me see how I can make this political wave here somehow. Takes a lot of corporate money, billionaires, sell out, kind of sells out to the highest bidder. He's also a character, an actor, a creation. That's what he is. I hope he loses in Ohio so I can laugh my ass off. All this time focusing on a group of people that you're not even cool with. All this time focusing on a group of people that don't even overwhelmingly vote Republican. So never forget that. When you hear those kind of things, Vivek Ramaswamy is trapped. He's trapped in this identity crisis. Like he really want to be accepted by MAGA so damn badly, even after people have told him to his face to go back to India. Like, he want to be accepted by them so damn badly. It's just like, let me take that energy and point it back at the black people. It's sad. It really is. And I don't know, too much more to say about it than that. But he trapped. He in that middle there where it's like, well, I should say something back to the people making these comments towards me, but if I do, then I might lose this gubernatorial race. So what's that showing you? If you're in Ohio, that tells you Vivek Ramaswamy don't have a fucking spine. Is that someone you want to govern your state? He's learning real quick that he's not JD Vance. And the way that Ohioans may have gravitated towards JD Vance, they're not gravitating towards him. So sometimes people get a wake-up call. But what you have to remember when you hear those talking points of, well, if black people actually under the Jim Crow era, they were actually, well, you got to understand what people are actually saying. And for Vivek, he won't admit it, but the reality shows that his parents benefited from the civil rights movement. He don't want to admit that because he's afraid his paymaster's going to find that to be problematic. So to Vivek Ramaswamy, you don't shit on a group of people that you owe basically your American existence to. Because had it not been for us, your mama and daddy wouldn't have been here. Now you see the difference between him and Shama Sawant. Shama Sawant fought back against that caste system. You see Vivek ever complain about the caste system? Ever? No. Because he's at the top. Think about that. All right, ladies and gents, let me go ahead and quick announcement, and I'll get to those super chats as well. Reminder, Mutual Aid Workshop is this Saturday, July 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern. I will be hosting this virtually. If you sign up for my Substack newsletter, you will receive the invite along with the Zoom link Monday. You'll get that from me Monday afternoon, and everything you need will be there in the newsletter. You just click on the link and you'll be in the virtual session. The session is 1 hour. If you want to learn how to do mutual aid, come join me. Maybe my comrade JB might be able to stop by as well to chat a little bit, but I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And this is kind of the way that one of the ways we can build dual power, and that's by mutual aid, right? Like, so helping each other. I do have another mutual aid event that is coming up in August, and that is the back to school event that we do every year. So I'll be talking about that Tuesday night. But if you want to do the mutual aid workshop with me, come check it out this Saturday. Look for that in my Substack newsletter on Monday afternoon. Okay, let's go ahead and give shout outs to the super chats. Thank you, Adrian. Fam, I need everybody to wake up. Those 2 holes are just beginning. They're rerouting the water into the underground facilities. Our home's going to be impacted. The earth, roads where I live are sinking. Here you go. You guys see that? The Kashaba said, do people have flood insurance? Disaster capitalism will come next. Scoop up. I don't know if people have flood insurance in California. Probably not, I would guess. It's always offered in places that are known to, that are prone to flooding. Thank you, Leonard. When the power of love defeats the love of power, the world becomes a better place. Thank you, Cloudness. I'm a Knicks fan in Texas, been a Knicks fan with my Ewings on and my Ewing jersey. I was born a Knicks fan, not a bandwagon fan, still got my Ewings on. All right, Cloudness. Thank you, JB. Oddly, Trump doesn't call this a shithole country. Survive said he's not getting elected governor. MAGA don't want him. Disparaging black people is his game plan. There you go. Golden Mass said MAGA base ain't feeling Vivek at all. Thank you, Measured Man. As a pharmacist, can we talk about Vivek, fake drugs and patents that never passed, but he still tells the world he invented cures? I stand on that, Measured Man, PhD. Yeah, I forgot about that too, his pharma issues. Thank you, Roger. This is a common belief among non-white FBA groups who immigrate here as a tactic to become assimilated into and gain proximity into whiteness. Thank you, Libertarian Social Democrat. Ro Khanna gets respect from everyone because he is not obnoxious like Vivek Ramaswamy, who is insecure, smart aleck, who is overconfident and needs a wedgie. He's a wedgie. I haven't heard someone say that in a long time. Someone needs a wedgie. Thank you, Hotspot. Civil War was fought to give birth to capitalism. It was covered in the veneer of fighting for slavery. History lies too much, but we know the truth. Thank you so much for that. Okay, ladies and gents, that is it for me this Sunday. I will be live again Tuesday evening, so I hope to see you guys then. Other than that, you know the drill. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.